Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singer songwriters and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores the journey, creativity, and inspiration behind songs. My next guest was born in Vancouver, now lives in Calgary, Alberta. He initiated the Canadian Music Discovery Project in 1988, fueled by his passion for the nation's diverse musical landscape. He has the largest private collection of Canadian music memorabilia with more than 110,000 items. Over the past decade and a half, he has built an all-Canadian music streaming website which boasts over 700,000 titles. So, let's spill the tea with Robert Williston. Robert, thanks for being with us.
Hi, Dave. Nice to be with you.
Robert, this is quite an undertaking to build this website. Why do you do it? Why would you do this?
Well, I've always loved music and kind of went down a rabbit hole at a younger age with Canadian music, kind of getting into it, with friends and family. My dad was a big BTO fan. That would be my earliest remembering of music. Him blasting out four-wheel drive on a Saturday morning to wake up the neighborhood. Then the neighborhood kids kind of there seemed to be some of them that were into Canadian music too. So that kind of like led me in that direction. And then I started making mixtapes as a youngster, and always tried to put Canadian music on them. And I still have all those old mixtapes. I got hundreds of those. Then my bro went over to London. He was managing a pub in England, and I would send him music over there. I started putting Canadian music in there, and then starting off with like Loverboy and the Guess Who and the Rush and all that kind of stuff. And then I just wanted to try and keep on doing that, but start getting deeper into the Canadian music and more interesting music, right? So it kind of led me down a path there. Ended up sending him about 50 cassettes, and he played all that music in the pubs in London when he was managing the pubs. So then I went on and did a radio show at CITR in Vancouver for a couple of years called the Peking Canuck Show, which was all Canadian content, and I would do some mixing of Canadiana type stuff and put it all together, and 2-hour show every couple of weeks. Did that for a couple of years, and then. And before that, I started doing a database, which was intended to maybe be a book, and that database I turned into the website. So when I got to around 47,000 titles, I decided that a book was not really feasible because it's always being updated, and as soon as you print it, it'd be out of date. So then I worked with a gentleman to basically take all that Excel spreadsheet and turn it into a website. So. He populated a website for me, and I immediately started out with 70,000 pages right away. Wow. That I could start to go and then do the next phase of the project would be scanning all those albums, recording them, and then posting them and putting some biographical information on them and contacting artists and stuff like that. So that's what I've been doing for the last 15. I'm in the 16th year right now. So
your profession is engineering. How do you make the leap from engineering to a Canadian music master?
I don't know that they're related too much, but there is attention to detail in engineering that I try to show on my website. When I'm listing information and writing things, I try to make everything neat and presentable and consistent, right? So one thing that differentiates my site from other sites is that there's a consistent approach to the way I present the information in a nice, legible, readable format, which is what you have to do on engineering drawings as well. Make things so that they're legible, readable, and make sense, right? So I think it reads better than Discogs, more interesting. And the scans are at high resolution, so you can actually read the album artwork when you're listening to the music, and which is also a differentiator. And also The music I put on there, there's a very high attention to the quality of sound. I put a lot of time into getting the best transfer I can and converting it into the highest compression possible for a website, and then putting it on the website, so that it basically some other streaming services don't pay that kind of attention to the quality of the sound.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to make it as close to a vinyl experience as possible, where you can read the liner notes, listen to music that kind of sounds like it's from vinyl, but doesn't sound too bad. It's not cleaned up too much. I don't clean things up too much. It's pretty much just how it comes off the vinyl.
Let's talk about the comparison to other services. So if we looked at, Spotify and Apple, Amazon Music, and services like that, how do you differentiate yourself between your site and the others?
Well, number one, my site is 100% Canadian content. The second thing is that sharing and protecting Canadian culture is at the forefront of my website's intent. Other services have other motives, right?
Mhm.
So another key differentiator is that mine is a database-driven website. So you can do deep searches. You could search like 1979 punk Toronto, and you would get everything that's being released by somebody from Toronto, punk record. Uh, and uh, and so if you go onto YouTube and that kind of stuff, it's more random. And if you go onto Spotify, you don't have that same kind of search function at all. So mine is for connoisseurs of Canadian music that are looking for a little more in depth than just your average streaming service. So there's also a deeper library of the Canadian music. Mine is a curated collection that I've put together over the course of the last 30 or 40 years collecting it. And so it goes a lot deeper than any other Canadian music service on the internet. Uh, and then the consistency I talked about, there's no ads currently on my site, although at some point, it's not a great business model to just do all this for nothing. So at some point I might have to change that, but currently there's no ads. And like I said, the album artwork, high resolution, unlike Discogs, it's all illegible.
Mm.
Biographical information's on my site, and strict quality sound control is also foremost.
So people listening to you, uh, and listening to what you're saying about no ads, people might want, so how do you make any money, Robert? Well, like, what's the business model? This is too good to be true that you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart. Robert must be he's an independently wealthy, multimillionaire Canadian that has a good amount of time on his hand and just wants to do this out of the goodness of his heart. Like, what's the business model?
Well, currently, there is no business model. The business model is I do all this for free, and artists don't get paid, but neither do I. It's a service for Canadians and for Canadian music lovers. Um, and I get away with it because I'm not making any money, and people are happy about the free promotion of it, right?
Mhm.
Is this a long term? Is this sustainable over a long period of time? Probably not, uh, and it needs to be resolved. So at some point, I'm going to need major sponsorship to try and take this to the next level.
Mhm.
How that transpires is yet to be seen.
The years that you cover, the span of time, you have a lot of vintage, uh, a lot of vintage tracks on your website, and we see the 45 labels, and we see the LP covers. What's the span of years that you're covering at the moment?
Well, right from the beginning of sound recordings, which was the early 1900s, right up until present day, um, with more focus on 20th century sound recordings than current stuff, because it's hard to keep current. There's just too much. It is just me, one person doing this
Mhm.
all. So I have limited resources. Uh, So I do focus on 20th century for the most part, and then newer releases that some of the older artists are still putting out, which a lot of it is
Mhm.
some pretty good stuff still. And so the main focus, I would say, would be 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Robert, give us an example of some of the featured artists that you have on your website.
And this is just the bees. Bruce Cockburn, his entire catalog. Emile Claire Barlow, her catalog. Bent Wind, the rarest Canadian album. Biggie Twiggy Band with Lou Adder, who still cranks out one or two blues albums every year. Bill Bissett and the Mandan Massacre, who released a killer, crazy freak album in 1968. Black Knight, heavy metal band from Vancouver in 1985. B.P. Nickel released Mother Love in 1968. The Brazda Brothers, the terrific folk rock psych album, 1973. British Mod Beats. The Mod Is from 1967. That's with Fraser Loveman, who we lost a couple of years back. Buck 65, his entire catalog. Buddy and the Boys from Nova Scotia. Buddy was his name. Every album, Buddy was his name, from Newfoundland. Borealis, another band from Newfoundland. Sons of the Sea. Great, great rock album. What I've tried to curate is all the best and rarest Canadian music.
The URL for your website is citizenfreak.com.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that name?
Citizen Freak is a song by the 49th Parallel. They're a Calgary band, so it's a shout out to Calgary garage song. And I always loved that song because Citizen Freak, if you listen to the lyrics, it's about a guy who gets up every day, goes to work, and kind of realizes that it's a useless thing to do. Just get up and go to work every day, right?
Mhm.
So he's a citizen freak. Like he doesn't want to just do the 9 to 5 thing. So I like that Calgary connection. I love that song, and it's a cool name.
But there are lots of artists that are up there that now form part of Canadian history. The other important thing for people to know is a lot of the music that you're putting up there is on vinyl. So the transfer is not like transferring a digital track where you just drag and drop it. This is real time transfers. So you sit there with an LP that might have 8 tracks or 10 tracks or whatever it happens to be, and you need to do live transfer with each one of these and then catalog them afterwards. Tell us about that process.
Well, it's very time consuming, like you say. Um, First of all, you have to get a good clean vinyl. Sometimes you just can't, so you end up having to do post production work. The cleaner the vinyl, the less work you have to do once you've transferred it. So yeah, I have a turntable here. The turntable has a USB out into a USB phono box, which captures the analog sound and converts it into digital. That goes into the USB in on the computer and records it live. You do the whole album, then you have to go in afterwards, do 2 sides, go in afterwards and cut up all the tracks and clean up, the intro and the outro and any ticks and clicks that might be in there. And then you have to convert them to MP3, and then at 320 is what I put on my site. So the sound is pretty good. Wave would just be too large to handle. And then you put the tracks on the website. Then you have to scan the albums. Then you have to write up all the biographical information. Then, sorry, the album credits, and then you have to hopefully contact the artist and put the biographical information on there. And then there's a write up of it. Sometimes, if I'm inspired or if I feel like it, I'll review the album or interview the artist. And sometimes I'll put the interview on my site, or I'll just take the information and do a write up. And then that's one album, right? Well,
Yes.
every artist will have 5 or 10 or 15, and then there's 5 or 10,000 artists. So the amount of work is mind-boggling, to be precise.
Robert, you've got an extensive vinyl collection. You've put a lot of time into it. You mentioned the amount of data storage that you have on your website. What kind of investment have you made in this endeavor? It has to be substantial.
Yes, it's very substantial. It's well over $1 million. Just the acquisition of all of the music over 20, 25, 30 years was easily $1 million. And then running this site for the last 15 years and all the costs that go with that. And not to mention traveling around the country to find the music and then ship it back in boxes, which I've done many, many times. 1.5 million probably in total.
And
that's excluding the 30,000 man hours. What's it worth?
Well, I was just going to say that if we put you back to work in engineering and looked at your hourly charge for engineering for 30,000 hours, now we're over $2 million investment into this project. That's substantial. Well, we certainly hope that you find some sponsors for this. Well, I hope you're successful in finding a sponsor. I know at some point in time when we hear the deal where a big company's come along and paid you 20 or 30 million dollars for your idea, everybody's going to say, well, there's another guy that just put some stuff up there and overnight he made 20, 30 million dollars. We'll hear that story in the not too distant future, and I wish that for you, sir, because you put a lot of work into this. If people want to visit the website, where should they go? What's the URL again?
Citizenfreak.com. So another easier way is MOCM. It used to be MOCM.ca, Museum of Canadian Music. So you can it just still takes you to the same spot, MOCM.ca, easier to type.
We've been in conversation with Robert Williston. He is the creator of an all-Canadian music streaming site. Robert, thanks for being with us.
And thank you. Much appreciated.